Hello everybody, and welcome to my little video on my two favorite hurricane lanterns. What we have here today are two of my absolute favorites. They are both very large lanterns. I'm sure most of you have seen these. Oftentimes you'll see them related to a railroad or possibly farm equipment in a barn or something like that. A farmhouse would most likely have them. And they're also just great conversation pieces, and they're kind of timeless. They've been around for a very, very long time. The two of them here are both from different time frames. The one on the right, the galvanized one, is by the brand W.T. Kirkman. It is a number 2 champion cold blast hurricane lantern. It is 1 year old. I bought it online from the company W.T. Kirkman, and I actually called customer service and actually spoke to the Mr. Kirkman himself, believe it or not. What a great guy, great conversation. And what I found out is that the W.T. Kirkman brand is mostly revamped and more intricate versions of lanterns like the one you see on the left by the company Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z. The one on the left is a Dietz number 8 Air Pilot hurricane lantern, also a cold blast hurricane lantern. I'll explain that in a minute. If you look, they're very similar in their shape, their design, and the way they operate and run. But W.T. Kirkman decided that since a lot of the lanterns by Dietz, like the one on the left, which actually the one on the left was made in Hong Kong, and more recently is now made in China. So the one on the left is definitely a little bit more valuable. It's actually made in Hong Kong, and you might say, overseas, but Dietz used to be in the United States. They're an American company, but they sent it overseas many, many years ago to Hong Kong. So the one on the left is actually made in Hong Kong, not made in China. What's the difference? Well, it's still an excellent, very well made lantern. But W.D. Kirkman decided, well, how about we bring some of this stuff back to the good old United States? How about that concept, huh? So I gave W.D. Kirkman a lot of credit. And what they did is they took the equipment, they took the dies, the molds, the crimping equipment, all that stuff, and they set up shop here, I believe it's in California. So the lantern on the right is W.D. Kirkman, and it is made right here in the United States. So kudos to W.D. Kirkman for revamping the lantern industry. And what they did, that every crimp is more intricate, every fold, every bend, every die, every tool that was used, it's a higher grade, handmade, very well designed version of lanterns like the one you see on the left. Now, I'm not knocking Dietz whatsoever, and in fact, W.D. Kirkman also sells a whole line of Dietz lanterns because, hey, they're still a great company. Clearly, they are still a great company. But you will find online on the W.T. Kirkman website a lantern like the one on the right is identical to, I think it's a number 2 Blizzard by Dietz. They are identical in every way, shape, and form. However, you will find that the one on the right, the one that I have here, operates more smoothly. The glass globe is thicker. It's thicker glass. It's a higher grade quality lantern than the Dietz version of the same size and shape. So kudos to W.D. Kirkman for keeping stuff made in America, and that's the way it should be. But the lantern on the left, like I said, was made in Hong Kong. I want to say late 1960s, probably very early 1970s. So it's not a super, super old antique, but that's okay. And again, as you can see, it's in excellent shape. Now, the one on the left, the blue one, is an air pilot, and I love that design. Love the design. The intricate little details, the shape of the glass globe, the shape of the support structures that support the upper piece is just something about the curves and the design of it. I just love the air pilot. Air pilot is just the way to go. But they're both beautiful lanterns. Now, the one on the left I bought at the Antique Depot, which is a store kind of near my house. I went there, I was walking around just looking at stuff, just browsing. And this thing on the left I bought literally for pennies on the dollar. Now, it was a little dirty, and you could tell it just needed a good scrubbing. But I got an incredible deal on that lantern. And if you compare to what it sells for, brand new, I got it basically for a steal, to be honest. Now, I sat there for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, at the kitchen sink, gently scrubbing the globe, gently scrubbing all the parts, being careful not to get water into the fount, which is the oil tank below. It was in excellent shape to begin with. It was just really, really dirty. So either way, it's now almost tied with my number one favorite lantern, the one on the right. But honestly, they're both now my most favorite two lanterns. I own other lanterns somewhere in my house, which I think I still have yet to unpack or discover. I don't think I threw them out, but honestly, these are the ones I like to now consider as the ones to go to for a conversation piece. Or if the power should go out and you don't feel like using a flashlight, guess what? I'm running, I think the brand is called Firefly, and it is like the top-notch oil to burn. Why is it top-notch? You're going to spend a little bit more for it, but guess what? There's no black smoke, there's no soot, there's no odor, there's no smell, and it is specifically designed to be burned indoors. Now, granted, of course, in the wintertime and stuff, when you don't have the windows open, you probably should open a window once in a while for a few moments to get some fresh oxygen into your room. You're still burning candles and flames, of course. But beyond that, the Firefly lamp oil is the way to go. Now, the lantern on the right, during the summertime, I did have citronella oil in it, an ultra-pure, fine grade of citronella oil, and it was fantastic for having outside for getting rid of the mosquitoes, like burning a citronella torch or a candle, or instead of spraying your body with off bug spray. The lantern on the right was amazing for burning citronella oil. Now that it's getting cooler out, what I did was I very carefully dumped it all out, cleaned it all out, completely revamped the whole thing, changed the cloth wick. Both lanterns use a 7/8 inch cloth wick. Cotton, the way to go. So now, instead of having citronella oil in the lantern on the right, I now have the same Firefly oil in it. And it just, as you can see, you just look at them and I don't smell anything. Maybe if you really, really, really try to smell, what you would smell is the wick. The actual wick, burning. Basically what it is. But there's no soot, there's no black smoke, there's no nothing. And so I'm really happy. The one on the right, the W.T. Kirkman number 2 champion lantern, I did buy new from the W.D. Kirkman website. And like I said, after speaking to the owner on the phone, I was rested assured that if there's anything wrong with the lantern, they stand by their stuff 100%. And that's a really cool thing. Now, Dietz has been around way longer. The blue one on the left has been around way, way, way longer. Dietz is a very, very, very old name. So they have a great reputation, despite the fact that a lot of the stuff is now made overseas, which is But either way, what I would say is, instead of flashlights or whatever, if there's a power outage, maybe the power goes out, you have no heat in the wintertime, you can certainly kind of cuddle around these and kind of keep a little bit warm. I mean, they burn brighter, and warmer than just a candle or what they call a dead flame lamp, which is nothing to do with any modifications of air being forced towards the flame. They just burn dead. It's a dead flame. These, why is it called a cold blast lantern? They also have hot blast lanterns. That's another conversation for another day. But a cold blast lantern, quick fun fact, why is it called a cold blast lantern? Why do they burn brighter than another type of lantern? Well, if you look, these support arms here, right? Support arms. These do not only hold up the whole upper chamber, but they are actually air tubes. Down below here is your fount. And if you notice, they both have huge founts. Oil tanks are founts. And they're huge, which is another reason why I love these two, because they're much harder to knock over, because the bottom bases are so huge compared to many, many, many other types of hurricane lanterns. A cold blast lantern, however, as I was saying, this is a bell-shaped thing, if you notice, right? Kind of bell-shaped. And so what happens is you have a flame inside, and the heat, of course, due to science, is going to rise. It's going to rise up. There's a little bit of air through these air holes for ventilation. It's going to continue all the way up, and the exhaust is going to come out of these chimneys on the top. In motion of going up, there creates, I believe they call it a Venturi effect, but basically it's a draft. So the heat rises, but this bell here is actually funneling air, cold air from out here, drawn up into the bell and sucked down through these air tubes. These are actually designed to draw air down. And below here, this is the fount. There's two chambers. One on the inside is a tank of oil, and the thing that I'm touching now is the outer chamber that has just air in it. So the air that comes through here down channels into the base here above the oil tank and shot up into where the flame is. So that's why these flames burn brighter. And then it comes out. So you've got this circular motion and out. So cold air comes here, goes up into the bell, comes through these two arms, down, around, shot up at the flame, which makes it burn brighter, and then the heat rises and the exhaust comes out of the top. That is how a cold blast lantern works. Did you know that? Fun fact. So it's also science related. There's no batteries, there's no fans, there's no motors, there's no Wi-Fi. It just works on the principles of science. And why are they called hurricane lanterns? Because the design, it's almost impossible to blow them out. So even in supposedly hurricane force winds, high winds anyway, you're less likely to have these things actually blow out when you might need that flame the most. Another thing to notice real quick is the shape of the flame. Now what I have here is a wick that I kind of rounded, so that's why it's rounded. The flame is rounded. Like the wick is inside there, but the flame is kind of rounded because that's how I trimmed the wick. Fun fact, you can trim it straight across, you can round it, or you can bevel it. This one on here is beveled like a triangle, which is why the flame burns like a triangle. It's just something cool, just for the heck of it. It's completely up to you how you want to trim the wicks. Some people say if you just cut it straight across and don't bevel it or curve it, it actually burns a little bit brighter or a little bit smoother. This is just a fun kind of thing to do, to have your flame take the shape of your wick. So anyway, any other questions? Hope I answered your questions. A hot blast lantern, by the way, is very similar in design, except the exhaust is a little bit different. So the exhaust would come up and get circulated around. So instead of having cold air coming through these, a hot blast lantern would take the exhaust and have the hot air come down through here. Less oxygen, They don't burn as bright or as smoothly. That's why these cold blast lanterns were years ahead of its time, and certainly scientifically based, an excellent way to burn a flame much brighter than just a regular candle. So that's why you've got these things lasting so long. So, and again, like I said, these support arms, they have cold air or cool air going through them, so they're okay to hold by the sides. Just remember, don't burn your knuckles on the glass, because the glass globes do get really, really, really hot. But the best way to carry them is by their handles, which I have tucked in the back, and not by the arms. But you can if you had to. And again, a hot blast lantern, you wouldn't want to do that because you've got hot air going through those tubes. So it's a little more difficult to hold on to if you had to hold them by the sides. Other than that, again, great find on the Dietz number 8 Air Pilot Blue Lantern, Hurricane Lantern, Cold Blast Lantern on the left, and an awesome purchase a year ago, the W.D. Kirkman number 2 Champion Cold Blast Hurricane Lantern on the right. And like I said, both are burning Firefly Ultra Pure, I think it's paraffin free lamp oil. I think it's actually kosher. Whatever it is, if you want to know, I can give you a link to it. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my little ramblings about my 2 absolute ultimate favorite hurricane lanterns. Take care, and God bless.